Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the podcast that, unlike NFL coaches, if needed, we will take a timeout during things to slow things down and get ourselves ready to prepare for the rest of the show. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to everyone's favorite football podcast, the Sports Agents of Chaos. Man, it's good to be back because last week we had to do an emergency episode because of Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving. Hope everyone enjoyed their Thanksgiving. And now, boys, 'tis the most magical time of the year. It is December. We know what that means. We're a month away from the NFL playoffs. That's really the real magic. That's the true holiday coming up, the NFL playoffs, not whatever December 25th or 24th, who cares what these holidays are at this point. This is the most important time of the year for us coming up. And of course, as always, I am joined by my two compatriots, myself, Iceman Jerk, joined by my boy on my right, technically, well, actually, it's the right, who knows? StreamYard always screws me up. Justin Zuckman, how we doing?
What's going on?
You're looking good. You're looking good. The lighting's a lot better. You shared your secret before the episode started. The lighting is perfection now.
Thanks.
You look
I do what I can.
beautiful, beautiful. And of course, joining us, who had a man who had a busy morning. We all had a busy morning, technically speaking. A man who had a busy morning for himself is hunting. I'm not gonna say what he's hunting, but he's just hunting. Is he hunting new topics to rant about? Who knows? Podfather Rick, how we doing?
I'm hunting wabbits. That's what I'm doing, actually.
Explains why Sandoval's not here.
Well, after I almost got a perfect week last week, he decided to take some time off to regather himself and reconstitute his.
No!
I know, but he did send along a greeting. He said, "Justin, you're welcome for the delight." So there you
go. It's like. Every episode that Sandoval is not here, the audience misses him. Justin, not so much. So, despite Sandoval's absence, the show must go on, ladies and gentlemen. We have our usual standard affair. We're going to start the show here in a couple moments with our usual fun games that we play via our games master himself, and we end the show, of course, as always, with our pick challenge plus the rant podium at the end. Will we have smack dab in the middle? We're looking ahead a little bit, as you can tell by the title, the quarterback bubble. Whose bubble bursts first? Beautiful scheme right there in terms of. Not alliteration, like the words sound very familiar at the end. Rhyming, even though it's not real word. Anyways, we're getting towards the end of the season, boys, which means eventually after the playoffs, it's the offseason. But we don't need to wait until the offseason and the playoffs to start hearing rumors. We have a list of 8 teams that we have compiled between our brilliant minds, aka yesterday. And we have these lists of teams that either by reports we've already seen, by potential things that that are on the field, or just ideas really that just popped in our brain, that these 8 specific teams could get new quarterbacks next offseason. The interesting thing with the 8 teams we don't have the obvious teams that like most people would expect. We don't have the teams that we know they're going to move on from their quarterback because their quarterback was a stopgap or their quarterback is just room is just terrible. Carolina. What we do have are 8 teams that it's going to be a legitimate conversation. Will they move on? Should they move on? Should they keep the status quo? Can they? What is the cap situation with some of these teams? All of this is going to play a factor into the 8 teams that we're going to discuss here. So that's what's going to make it more interesting for us instead of just saying, hey, guys, Carolina Panthers, they need a quarterback? Yes. Moving on. The answer is no. PJ Walker's there. But in reality, yeah, they do. But they're not one of our 8 teams. We will have those 8 teams. We will discuss them in a bit. But before that, like I said, in the podcast that our tagline is fun, football, and chaos. We start with pure fun. Not a little bit of football in it, but pure fun. Justin, our game's master. Let us begin with the tradition of trivia.
All right. So let me bring up my question here. Now, I have to bring attention to being a Jet fan, the wonderful day that Zonovan Knight had. He is one of 3 undrafted rookies in the last 32 years to debut with a 100-yard all-purpose yard from scrimmage game. One of 3. Only one undrafted rookie running back has ever – oh, no, I'm sorry, not running back. Only one undrafted rookie has ever done it 2 games in a row. His first 2 games over 100 all-purpose yards. What player is that? You need me to re-say it?
Yeah, just re-say it a little bit. Not
Sure.
because it was confusing or anything, but because I more want to understand the symbiosis of the question, really.
Sure. Since 1990, Zonovan Knight is one of 3 undrafted rookies to go over 100 scrimmage yards in his first career game. Only one undrafted rookie has done it in his first 2 career games. Who?
Who?
Wow. Well, undrafted rookie. God, who was an undrafted rookie that made a significant impact?
The former Broncos running back C.J. Anderson. He was undrafted, was he not? Or was he a late round pick?
He might have been late.
I forget exactly because I just remember one time after they faced the Patriots, like Brady actually I forget if it was like on his jersey or helmet or something. He gave him like a little signature story, he wrote something about like his whatever his draft status was for C.J. Anderson. So maybe he was a late draft pick, but I thought he was a undrafted running back.
You know what? No, I think he was undrafted, but he came out I think in like 13, I think, and the Denver Broncos running back room was crowded in 13. It was like Noshawn Marino was there. I think Peyton Hillis was there. So if he got in on the debut, it wouldn't have been a significant impact unless he had like 2 big plays, and that was it.
Right. Also, going back to old school names is the tradition on the show. Noshawn Marino and Peyton Hillis. Oof.
Yeah.
There's a Madden cover athlete in there, and it's not who you think it is between those 2 names, ladies and gentlemen.
It's the sadder one of the group, actually. So, jeez, this is tough. Trying to think of. I'm seriously trying to think of the best undrafted rookies that I've seen, but I don't remember any on the top of my head who have had significant,
Right.
So,
because the thing is that 9 times out of 10, when it comes to an undrafted rookie and like them being able to make an impact, injuries had to happen in order for that to be the case.
Right, and you're also talking about a guy who wasn't drafted and then came on in his debut to, have a phenomenal game, because Wes Welker was undrafted, but he wasn't the Wes Welker that we know that Justin and I loathed for many years until, the late 2000s.
Right.
It wasn't that Wes Welker in Miami.
No, he was not. Shoot.
I'm struggling here.
Yeah, you guys haven't even come up with a guess.
You know who I'm thinking of, Jerk?
Give me a name.
Well, we're talking about since 1992, right? Talking about the last 30 years.
Well, Zonovan Knight is one of 3 players to do it in the last 3 years, in the last 32 years.
Yeah.
Only one player, undrafted, according to this, all time, has ever had his first 2 games go over 100 scrimmage yards.
So, but we're not talking about a running. It doesn't have to be a running back. It could be a wide receiver or a tight end, basically.
Rookie.
Just rookie.
Undrafted rookie.
Antonio Gates.
Ooh.
He was undrafted because he was a basketball player in college.
Right.
He was undrafted. Priest Holmes as well was undrafted. But Priest Holmes was definitely a guy who came on later on. Right. I know he languished with the Ravens for a bit. But Antonio Gates is could be a guy that maybe I'll say Antonio Gates is my first guess.
All right. Antonio Gates is not the guy I'm looking for.
Okay.
It's a good guess, though.
Yeah.
So there are two names in terms of more modern players that come to mind in terms of just guys who, like, you've heard of them being undrafted. One of them, especially because of a story. Adam Thielen is one of the guys, and then Austin Eckler is the other. But I feel like what was their rookie seasons, I don't know how big their impact was. I feel like both of those guys were more so like year 2/3 for themselves. Especially Thielen. Like, it took him a couple years, I feel, to like eventually stick and make his impact with the Vikings.
Maybe, yeah.
So, like, because those are two undrafted guys, but again, the only guy who maybe I would consider would be Eckler, because I feel like it'd be easier for a running back to get the pathway.
Maybe. That's a possibility.
Sure, it is scrimmage yards.
Right. And we know Eckler can do both, so I don't think it's bad just to use a first guess, because I'm just blanking on a lot of names, and maybe this will help like spark something. So I'll just say Austin Eckler for my first guess.
Austin Eckler is an excellent guess, but unfortunately he was splitting carries with Melvin Gordon. He's not the guy on this list.
Melvin Gordon. That's why the Broncos cut you. Well, there are a lot of reasons why the Broncos cut him, actually.
Yeah, let me ask a question here. If we're talking about scrimmage yards, does a quarterback's passing yards count as scrimmage yards? Theoretically?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that distinction is made between.
It's a different thing. Okay.
Yeah.
Because I mean, Kurt Warner is probably the most well-known undrafted player of modern times. Right. And then Tony Romo's up there too. But obviously, if we're talking about scrimmage yards like rushing and receiving and not passing, because that would be.
It's not a quarterback.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Maybe it is Adam Thielen.
You think?
Maybe.
I don't know. As a rookie, I'm not sure. That's the only thing. As a rookie, is my thing.
Or maybe we're thinking about this. Maybe we're not thinking about the right guy. Maybe. Let me think about this for a second here. All right, I'm gonna pull a name out for my second guess here, and we'll see if maybe this will be a positive step in the right direction here. I'm gonna go off the beaten path a bit with the salsa king of East Rutherford himself, Victor Cruz.
Interesting. I do not have Victor Cruz. If you remember, actually, Victor Cruz was a free agent picked up by the Giants. He was not very successful in his first stint in the NFL.
But he was undrafted.
He was undrafted.
Yeah.
I think didn't he tear his ACL like what was supposed to be his rookie season?
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah.
Damn, Victor Cruz.
He's not the player we're looking for. That's a good guess. It's a great shout.
Really good guess.
Yeah.
Hey, okay.
You guys want a hint?
Sure.
Yeah, sure.
I believe this player is still in the league.
So maybe it is Adam Thielen then.
I guess he's the only one I can think of.
He's still playing today.
I'm just trying to run through like guys who are on teams. Who it could be? Wait, Rick, was James Robinson undrafted?
I don't think it's that on the nose of a question. I really don't think it's that.
You sure?
Obvious. I'm pretty positive it is, but I could be wrong.
Because he made an impact his rookie year, did he not? Like it's Jacksonville.
He did, but again, remember we're talking about a debut here, so
true, it's not a full season; it's a debut. James Robinson did have 1,000 yards his rookie season, though.
Come on now, like that's not a bad guess.
Was he undrafted though?
That's the thing. That's why I don't. Yeah, like that's that because I was just thinking through
if he was, then yeah, it's not a bad guess. But
nobody expected it. I think because they had Fournette, and they had picked up James Robinson undrafted, and they didn't expect him to do anything. All of a sudden, Fournette was out for the year or missed his starting job, and because he was hurt.
Yeah.
And Robinson burst on the scene. That's actually the reason they ended up cutting Fournette, I believe, the next year.
Well, then he just didn't.
And then he went to the Bucs.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That he did not want to be in Jacksonville anymore. Yeah, like it's between Robinson and Thielen, and I just don't think Thielen did it his rookie season. I think it took him a year. I think it took him at least 1 year before he really made an impact. So, unless there's a name I'm missing here, Rick, James Robinson is going to be my last guess. So
yeah, go for it.
Let's see if this is on the nose. Let's go with James Robinson.
James Robinson is a great guess, and actually, when I found this question, he was the first player I looked up because I was sure he had done it. But no, James Robinson is not the guy we're looking for.
All right, those are all our guesses.
I thought you each had 2, right?
Yeah, that was
good.
Yeah. That was 3?
No, that was 2. That was
2.
Oh, you're all doing 2 each?
We got to speed this up.
True. I'm sorry, I was used to 3.
You're the game master. He's the clock master.
There we go. In 2018, Broncos rookie running back Philip Lindsay became the first undrafted player to ever have 100 scrimmage yards in each of his first 2 career games. Currently playing for the Colts.
He's a Colt.
Oh.
Yep.
I thought he was a Texan.
Nope. He was cut by the Texans, I believe, and picked up after Naheem Hines was traded and Jonathan Taylor went down.
Huh. Neat.
Neat.
That's all I can say. Neat.
Well, there you go. There you have it.
Oh, God. That was just the first trivia.
Oh,
yeah. There's only one trivia.
Oh, there's that's probably a good thing.
Wow.
That's probably a good thing. Well, Justin has bested us. Looks like Sandoval is really the one that carries us after all, Rick.
I think so, yeah. It has to be.
So whenever Sandoval comes back, we'll get back into our winning form eventually. In the meanwhile, before the deer returns, let's go to our next game. Which, I mean, technically speaking, there's no win or loss here. It's just opinions. So let's have some fun. Let's have some NFL Would You Rather.
All right, and now from a pure speculation standpoint, let's say you had your own NFL team and you had to host a home game. What team would you rather play today? The New York Giants or the Washington Commanders?
Oof.
This question will get Rick in trouble.
Thanks, Justin.
Anytime, bud.
He ever gets himself in trouble at home, or he goes against his entire season of rooting for Taylor Heineke?
I mean, unfortunately, the answer is the Giants. Unfortunately,
I'd rather play the Giants.
No, I wouldn't. I'd rather play the Commanders. I'd rather play the Giants. First play, I'd rather play the Giants than the Commanders, only because while Taylor Heineke is a boomer bust type of player, he's still done something incredible with the Commanders, which is he's brought them back from the brink of nonsense to a point where they're 7-5, and they could jump into third place, maybe second, depending on how things go in the next couple of weeks.
What are they, 6-1 in their last 7 games?
Something like that, yeah. And the one game they lost, I think, wasn't that difficult of a loss. It wasn't that far off of a loss. They could be 7-0 with Heineke in there too. The Giants just don't have any role players. Like, they don't have any receivers aside from Darius Slayton that I'm scared of. They haven't signed Odell Beckham. I mean, I think United Airlines might sign Odell Beckham at this rate to, help with their airline security team. But basically all you have to do really is stop their running game. I mean, Daniel Jones does convert on third downs, but they're not putting up a lot of points. The Commanders have the ability to put up a lot of points, and their defenses look really, really good in the past couple of games. So, I mean, I'd rather face the Giants because the Commanders look like the team that's on a mission to reclaim something here. And I mean, the Giants looked that way in the beginning, but now the schedule's gotten a lot tougher for them. I can see it being the Commanders' division wild card spot to steal, in a sense.
That Commanders game, by the way, was the loss to the Vikings by only a field goal.
Yeah,
because they were up by 1 point in that game. little. Some people might forget. I'm with Rick. I would also rather face the Giants because I feel between those two teams, I feel like I can rattle the Giants more so. Brian Daboll's been an amazing coach, but I want to see the situation where his team finally gets a hot start to a game. They go up like 10-0, 13-0. And then your team, like if you can rattle like 20 straight points off them, how will they respond? I'm not saying anything against him, but I'm just saying I like the Giants. We've said it already. They've won in an unsustainable fashion this season, and it's going to catch up to them. And it might be starting to catch up to them now with how the second half of this season is looking schedule wise, and just the fact that at the end of the day, Daniel Jones is the quarterback, and you're talking about being able to rattle a guy. Look, say what you will about Taylor Heineke. Boom or bust, he's probably more bust than boom sometimes, but goddamn, that dude has something in him that he just doesn't get rattled. He just doesn't get bothered. Like there's something there character-wise that I'm sorry, Daniel Jones just doesn't have it. Like whatever it is, whatever you want to quantify it as, I know that's generic, but he just doesn't have it. Like Daniel Jones is going to be a pretty good backup quarterback in this league for the future. He's going to be a pretty good clipboard holder, just like Taylor Heineke will be after the season most likely, but even between the two of them, I would rather trust Taylor Heineke to not fumble the clipboard when holding it. So I'd rather face the Giants. I feel like I could rattle that team way easier.
And I'll tell you the truth. If the Commanders had just started the year with Taylor Heineke, I think you'll be looking at a team that probably is matching the Eagles right now in terms of.
Do you think that he has the same effect?
Heineke or Carson Wentz?
Heineke playing it. Well, because you gotta take into account the idea that he came in, they won a game, and all of a sudden he was like that fire that they needed to really get that team going.
Well, Taylor Heineke should have been the starting quarterback ever since the 2020 playoff game against Tampa Bay. Like, yeah, they lost that game, but the fire was there. It started. And I guess Washington at that time was a little slow to the draw because they weren't sure they caught lightning in a bottle or it was like a flash in the pan. So I can't blame them for bringing in Carson Wentz, to try and see if it was maybe he's a more established guy, but you now have somebody. It literally is like a Kurt Warner story in a way. You have somebody who was middling, who was doing nothing really, and now he's become basically the next Alex Smith or Joe Theismann, pre leg snap, and who if he does, if Washington does somehow, I'm not saying they will. If they somehow do make it to the Super Bowl on a run and they win the whole thing, you're talking about the lineage of Super Bowl winning quarterbacks in Washington. I know, but just hear me out.
What are we talking about?
No, it's
humor
even
him. Just humor him for a moment.
It's even more of a crazier point here. You're talking about the Super Bowl lineage. Well, you're talking about the Super Bowl lineage of Washington quarterbacks going from Doug Williams, the first African American quarterback to win a Super Bowl, to Mark Rippon, to Taylor Heineke. It's weird. It's a very weird thing.
It does sound like if it's going to happen, that's the way it would happen. But it's not going to happen. So we can move on.
I think we can also agree we don't want Daniel Snyder to ever get a Super Bowl while he's the owner still.
Yeah, let him sell the
No,
team.
absolutely not. He doesn't deserve it. Next year, when they sell the team to Matthew McConaughey, maybe. No.
All right. Well, let's say you're in a situation similar to the Commanders and you're on the outside looking in during the Super Bowl, which I very much expect them to be. And you have a hole to fill as an NFL team. Who would you rather sign this offseason? Josh Jacobs or Saquon Barkley? Both free agents coming off of a very good year after a couple of years being injured. Saquon is 26 in February. Josh Jacobs is 25 in February. Josh Jacobs leading the league in rushing currently, but Saquon Barkley having a great all-around season. Josh Jacobs also has a ton of touchdowns. Who you taking?
I think it kind of depends on your roster construction. Like, if you have that running back, like if you want to try to go for running back room with both those guys, which I think if we've seen any indication or what happens when QBs get paid, maybe trying to go for a more running back room style is the case and trying to get lucky with who you draft as your second running back. But with those two guys, here's the thing, I like both of them coming out, but if I just have to pick one, give me Josh Jacobs. That dude has just been an utter workhorse this season. Like one of the few bright spots of the day. And let's not sleep on his receiving game a little bit. He's probably going to finish the season with close to 500 receiving yards potentially. If Josh McDaniels wasn't his head coach, he might actually even be better than that. Like, Josh Jacobs proved himself, especially because they declined his 5th-year option. Like, he was like, "No, I'm making this happen." He has been a straight-up dog this season. And that walk-off touchdown run against the Seahawks just proved it. He is going to get handsomely paid by somebody this offseason. Probably going to be the Arizona Cardinals because they love making those kinds of deals. But Josh Jacobs is going to get paid this offseason. I'm going to be happy for him because he very much deserves it. And anything to spite the Raiders at this point is a positive. The only thing that would make it better is if he was spiting the Titans or the Broncos.
And it's great to see him have some production. Both of these guys, it's great to see have them have some production that we know that they could have done and could have been doing all this time. Rick, you gotta fill a hole. Who you throwing money at?
I mean, I think if you had gone from their draft hype and from their all in all like potential, I think a lot of people were expecting more from Saquon Barkley than they were from Josh Jacobs coming out.
For sure.
I think the thing about it is that it's not that big of a difference to me, but Josh Jacobs is almost a full calendar year younger than Saquon Barkley. I think he's 24, Barkley's 25. They're literally 2 days apart in birthdays.
Almost an exactly full year.
Yeah. So if you're building it based upon for the future and you're building it based upon what you think you're going to have, then you go with Josh Jacobs. But I think the intangible nature of, Jacobs has been good more recently, but Saquon, I still give a little love to Saquon Barkley. I do. I don't think there's a wrong answer of these two. I think, does Saquon have a little more of an injury history? I think so, than Josh Jacobs. But I think that
Josh Jacobs has missed a lot of time too.
He has.
Really look at what he's done. He's had a lot of injuries in his career.
He's mainly played through them, though, because I'm looking at his log right now. 13 games his rookie season, 15 games in 2020, so only one missed. 15 games in 2021, so was that a 17-game schedule last season?
Last season it was.
So only
that's
2
more
games.
That's more than I was giving him credit for sure.
And then the thing is, he's probably played through injury.
He's always on that injury report.
Well, that's the thing is that the injuries that Josh Jacobs have sound more like bang dings and getting banged up. Saquon's injuries history has been a lot more serious. There's less of it, but the injuries are more severe. I still think Saquon is a generational talent where, if in the right system and with the right setup, he can become a Barry Sanders mold or an Adrian Peterson mold where he can really be a stronger running back through the tackles and make your offense churn. He doesn't have that in New York right now. And Josh Jacobs is first in the league in rushing, but one bad game for Josh Jacobs and you're talking about somebody else leading the league in rushing. So I would go with Saquon, but I think this was almost like back when we had that discussion of about Nick Chubb, and that would you rather? You can't go wrong with either guy. I really think, it just depends upon who fits the need the best and who you prefer to have.
I think no matter what, you need to make sure you got an offensive line because if we've seen anything from Najee Harris this season in Pittsburgh, part of his regression is the fact that offensive line is just dog water half the time. Well,
and their quarterback room's not that great either, so
And speaking of bad games, going into the week last week, Saquon was actually the league's leading rusher, and one bad game and one great game from Josh Jacobs, and that flipped around. Just real quick, both of these guys, the same team next year or a new team?
The Giants, I think it depends on which route they want to go for their new quarterback. Because if they try to go for an established name, I think that they need to go cost-effective on running back.
Well, we'll talk about who they go after later, Jared.
Fair, but I'm just saying, it does depend.
Of course. Quick hitter, what's your prediction? Yes or no?
Okay, I'll say Barkley stays with the Giants, but I'm saying Josh Jacobs leaves the Raiders because why wouldn't you want to leave that team at this point?
They both stay on the same team. They both stay on the same team.
In the best interest for both teams. And quick breaking news, Matthew Stafford has been placed on IR. His season is likely done.
And the Rams are done as well.
Oh, so. Yeah, I don't think that they expect to do much now at this point.
Rams being done is a fact for the rest of the season. Speaking of facts, we have NFL Fact or Fiction. Seamless transition there, boys. I appreciate it. Justin?
There we go.
Let's do it.
All right. Well, this question has kind of morphed over the last week or two because of their performance, but it's not actually a question. It's a fact or fiction. So the New York Jets will make a wild card spot in the AFC. Going Jet heavy today, boys.
Clearly.
Yeah.
One would think I would exercise more caution considering the 2 podcasts I do. All 4 of my co-hosts are Jets fans.
I gotta be honest.
But I will say fiction. I think even with the shooting star that is Mike White, I think they're similar to the Giants. I think we're starting to see flaws really break the Jets apart in some of these games. I think we're starting to see them really get taken advantage of by teams, and I think in the rest of the AFC, it's going to be between the Bills and the Dolphins for the AFC East. So one of those teams has to win the wild card, or one of them has to be a wild card team, right? So that's one of the wild card spots. The Chargers, to me, with all their injuries, are surprising, and I think them beating the Raiders this week will just catapult them into damn near a lock. I know there's still the rest of the season, there's still opponents, teams, etc., but you still have the Chargers, and you still have between the Ravens and the Bengals, one of those teams has to end up making it most likely as a wild card too. I just don't think the Jets deserve to make it over any of those teams. I think those teams have been better.
Well, look, so if you're going by the latest standings right now for the league, you have Kansas City's the number 1, Buffalo's the 2. You have Tennessee and Baltimore 3 and 4. The Dolphins are 5. The Bengals and the Jets are tied at 6. The Bengals have the head-to-head. So the Jets are 7. They're at 7 and 4. The Chargers are at 6 and 5. The Patriots are at 6 and 6. Now, you've lost twice to the Patriots, sure. But that's all you have. A Patriots team that is still not great, that has to finish with the Bengals, Dolphins, and Bills in their final 3 games. And the Chargers team that, while they're playing in the AFC West, they're banged up. So they've got the Dolphins and the Titans, and you never know how they're going to be. So they're ready to game back. I think it's a fact. I think the Jets will sneak in as probably the 7 seed. They might get up to the 6, depending on how things shake out. But it's right now, it's the Bengals, the Jets, the Chargers, and the Patriots fighting for the last 2 playoff spots. I think Miami is in. So I think your top 5 are set between – Baltimore could fall into that wild card spot too, but your top 5 are set. It's going to be the Chiefs, the Bills, the AFC North champ, and the Titans, sad to say. And then you have the Dolphins are in as well as the best wild card team.
The Dolphins, actually, if they win this week, they flip again with Buffalo.
Right.
The reason Buffalo's in that spot is because they played Thursday.
Right. So you have that. And then you've got those 4 teams. You got the Jets, the Chargers, the Patriots, and whatever team is the AFC North, either the Ravens or the Bengals, fighting for those last 2. I think the Jets have the inside track because the Patriots aren't impressive to me. And do they own 2 wins? Sure. But again, that last 3 games is a gauntlet. I don't care that you're playing the Bengals and the Dolphins at home. It's a gauntlet. And then the Chargers, if they get healthy, you could probably say sure, but what's the chance of that? Because they're still missing a couple of key guys. So I like the Jets' chances. I don't like it past the first round, but in the playoffs is
just make a playoff.
No, but what I was saying is in the playoffs is a big step up from where we all thought they were going to be at some point this season.
What did you ask me? What would I be happy with? They're playing a very meaningful game in December this week against the Minnesota Vikings. That's going to have major impacts, even though it's an NFC team. They're facing an 9-2 team that has played very well up until this point.
Yeah.
This will be a major test for the Jets. It'll be interesting to see.
Absolutely.
I think to be in the wild card hunt in December for the Jets is more than what they've been for 5 years now.
They're in the wild card spot in December.
Yeah.
Not even in the hunt. So, anyways, the next one is Tampa Bay will be an early exit playoff team this year.
What defines early exit for them? Pre-NFC title? First round?
Well, okay, so I'll jump in with this one. I'll start with this one first. So again, you're talking about a team that's going to be the number 4 seed in the NFC because they're not going to rattle off 6 straight wins in a row. Let's just call it what it is. Right now, the top NFC wildcard team is Dallas. But who's
the Tampa Bay week 1?
The advantage is you're hosting that game. There's something to be said for if you were going into Dallas, that would be a problem. But there's something to be said for
Where did they
hosting
play
that
this
game.
year?
I think it was in Tampa, if I'm not mistaken.
Take a look.
It was at Dallas. It was at Dallas, so I was mistaken.
Oh, so there
But
you go.
regardless, when you're talking about Tom Brady in January, he'll probably win one playoff game. Like then you could say, you're playing with house money. You win that first playoff game, you win that game, and then you are going to, in all likelihood, play at Philadelphia. Maybe you get lucky and you get to go to Minnesota, or maybe you host again, depending on how the rest of the things shake out. But if Tampa Bay gets into the playoffs, they're going to be dangerous. Doesn't matter. It's one game. It's Tom Brady. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter how old he is. Doesn't matter how many legs he's broken or whatever it is. It doesn't matter. So they will not be an early exit for me. I'm calling fiction on that.
See, I'm torn because I would like to say fact, but at the same time, it's the Cowboys in the playoffs, which A, deeply concerns me, and B, he's above he's a winning record since his divorce, and what an ultimate spite it would be if he gets one more ring. Oh my God!
If he does, I don't think it's this year.
Trade one for the other.
You're right.
Yeah.
He got rid of one ring for the other, and the other one is actually more valuable. Anyways, I don't. I'm only gonna say fiction because I've been burned by him just so many times. I'll say fiction for now.
We all have been burned by him.
But I still need to see this Tampa Bay team improve. I'm going to say fiction off the idea that this Tampa Bay team is going to kind of put it together though and be a little bit healthier come playoff time. Because we also can only project ahead so much. If Devin White or Levante David is out for the season and they can't play in that playoff game, there's no chance that they're able to win because that defense
lose Shaq Barrett.
That defense has been the crux of so much of their success. I think people don't realize it. So if they lose one more key defensive piece, we might just I might be willing to call it because this is not the same Dallas team that they beat in week 1. It's really not. This team is a lot better. We've seen this defense is one of the better ones in the league, especially how they just absolutely trounced the Minnesota Vikings. This Dallas offense, it comes and goes. It has the potential to be good. It really depends on how much they use Tony Pollard in the running game along with Zeke. And if CeeDee Lamb, who's having a much better end to the season than he did at the start, if only he could have done this at the beginning, maybe my prediction wouldn't have been as bad. But irregardless, and my pettiness aside, this Dallas team is better than what it was at the very beginning of the season. And if this is the opponent right now, I will give Brady a very slight credence. But at the same time, I'm not confident in it. Like this is not the same aura of a Tom Brady team that I normally get. And his aura can only do so much to push that at bay. If they do win, it's not like it's going to be similar to what their playoff run when they won the Super Bowl was, aside from the Super Bowl game itself, where every single game was like a touchdown game or less. And even still, like this Tampa team just does not like inspire me in any way, shape, or form.
The only thing that I'll say about it is that their schedule's favoring them in a sense. I mean, look at it like this. They beat New Orleans this week, and San Francisco loses to Miami this week.
Right.
You're talking about the Tampa Bay San Francisco next week possibly being for the 3 seed. And that's the difference between playing Dallas and playing right now the Giants.
Right.
Or the Commanders or Geno Smith.
Are you telling me he could play Daniel Jones in a playoff game? Of course he's going to win that game.
He's already beaten Taylor Heineke, much to my chagrin. And
he's beating the Seahawks, which means if he beats the 49ers, they have the advantage over the NFC West.
Yeah. So they are sneaky. And I mean, then you go from after that, you have Cincinnati, Arizona, Carolina, and Atlanta. There's a pathway for them to be the 3 seed, maybe even closing on the 2, depending on how Minnesota finishes the season.
God, that Arizona game has become so depressing on paper ever since the start of the season.
Justin,
I wouldn't bet on them making the 2 seed.
Justin, I don't think so either, but there is a pathway for it. I mean, Kirk Cousins,
I think if Minnesota wins, I guess they got to win 2 more games.
Yeah.
And then Tampa Bay would have to win out. And Minnesota would have to lose out pretty much.
Justin, if there's a reality where he gave us the Washington Commanders making the Super Bowl early in this episode, Tampa can get the 2 seed.
I mean, here's the thing. Here's the thing about it. Minnesota has 3 games remaining in division. They're all away from Minnesota.
That's not saying much. All their opponents are terrible.
Minnesota wins this week.
But 2 Green Bay. I know they're a shell themselves, but 2 Green Bay on New Year's Day, where it's going to be minus 25 degrees, and then 2 Chicago, where maybe Justin Fields is back, maybe not. You don't know.
Let me just say this. I mean, if we're talking meaningless games, if Detroit loses and Minnesota beats the Jets this week, the division is clinched. So there's no way they're going to be out of the playoffs.
Wow, who would have thought?
Come on, Dan Campbell. Come on, Dan Campbell.
Who would have thought the division was all on the backs of the Lions winning a game to prevent this?
In home against Jacksonville, also.
That's going to be an interesting one, to say the very least. One of the tougher games to kind of pick between. You could go either way with those teams.
Yeah,
because the Jags
don't know which team's going to show up.
Yeah, right. That's part of the reason.
Yeah.
Oh Lord. All right. Well, Justin, thank you so much for that NFL Fact or Fiction. Thank you for your games in general. You are the game master on this pod for a reason. But we talked a lot of different things throughout the games, and one thing that kept coming up was here and there the quarterbacks. So that brings us to the main crux of the show, and I mean, you're reading the title, people. The quarterback bubble. We have assembled a list of 8 teams that could potentially be in the market for replacing their current quarterback this offseason. Now, we're not saying this is definitive. Like I said, this is not compared to other teams who should definitively get a new quarterback after this season, such as the Carolina Panthers, to name one, such as probably the Houston Texans, even though Godspeed to whatever quarterback they end up having under center next season, because that team does not look good. These are teams where it's a little bit on the fringe. You can make an argument for keeping their current quarterback. You can make an argument for that they should move on from their current quarterback. It's really, it's a situation basis. And as the great Pat McAfee says, situations are situational. Now, let's begin with the teams, boys. Justin, I'm going to start with you. In this list of 8 teams, I'm getting this one out the way just because you've forced us to talk about the Jets way more than I probably thought we would this week. The Jets are the first team on this list of teams that could move on from their quarterback. Now, I'm not talking about Mike White, believe it or not, moving on from him because it's only been a game. I'm talking about just Zach Wilson in general. A lot of people are harping on Zach Wilson, Justin. And I think you two, for the most part, have been pretty fair. Like, you guys haven't been too overcritical of him, but you haven't sung his praises to the moon and back with him this season. I feel like you guys are very fair Jets fans when it comes to breaking it down. So, Justin, in your opinion first, when it comes to Zach Wilson and his tenure as the Jets, is he getting one more season, or is the rug going to be pulled out from under him quicker than we thought?
Okay, here's a question. Are you asking me if he'll be on the Jets next year?
Basically.
Or are you asking me, should they get will they have another quarterback next year? Because I think the answer to both of those questions are yes. I think that it doesn't make sense to cut him unless you find a trade partner. And I think there are trade partners out there that would give a decent package for Zach Wilson. He's still 23, 24. He's got talent. He can be molded. But this is not the quarterback for the team where they are now. They've built a really good young nucleus, and they need a quarterback that's ready to win now. So what I think they do is they go out and they sign a free agent quarterback, maybe a Jimmy Garoppolo. Maybe they make a run at Lamar, although I don't think he's going anywhere. And then you draft again. You restart. I'm not saying you use your first-round pick, but you find a quarterback that you think is worth it where you are in the draft, and you draft again. And unfortunately, it's time for them to restart this process already.
Sad to say. It's a damn shame.
He hasn't done anything. It is not for a lack of weapons. It's not for a lack of trying. I know the offensive line is rough this year, but I mean, you see the difference between 2 quarterbacks and him so far. I mean, Mike White almost passed his season total on touchdowns in 1 game. Zach played how many games? 7. He's still number 2 in passing touchdowns.
Oof.
Yeah. Russell Wilson has more passing touchdowns than Zach Wilson. And I know he played 3 more games or 4 more games, but there were plenty of zeros in that Russell Wilson stat too. So yeah, I don't see it for Zach, and you might not have this defense in 2-3 years. You need to capitalize on what you have.
Right. Fair. Rick, similar thoughts?
I'm tempted to say that you give him another shot, you give him another year, only because he missed 4 games this season in the beginning. You're not going to be able to see a full season of Zach Wilson, and maybe a full season of Zach Wilson will be better than a partial season of Zach Wilson. I don't know. I mean, I don't like pulling the trigger that early on a rookie quarterback, especially one that you've invested so much into. But the thing is, to Justin's point, this is basically a Carson Wentz, Taylor Heineke situation all over again, because Mike White has given the Jets energy. He has galvanized that team to potentially keep their playoff bid. And if that's the case, I keep Mike White there. I let Zach Wilson learn. I agree about potentially bringing in a low-risk free agent option, that's a starter at the moment. But I don't know if I see somebody out there that you can convince of that. Like Josh McCown, you could convince of that. And I don't want them to bring back Joe Flacco because that would just ruin everything that I've ever worked for in my entire life. So I don't know. Maybe you bring in Jacoby Brissett. If he's available, or if you can swing a trade, maybe. I don't know what the deal is with that, but I mean, maybe you can do Case Keenum potentially. Maybe Matt Barkley's available, but I
don't know if the guy is out there, and I don't know if
Nathan
any
Peterman?
of these guys would be starters on this team, but it is a humongous risk to bring Zach back and risk everything on this kid's production. I mean, you're going to lose players. There's going to be players that don't want to play anymore. You're going to the wide receivers don't want him to throw him the ball. They're not one game with a backup quarterback, and all of a sudden their stats exploded. You know what I mean? So, I mean, Garrett Wilson could have been maybe a rookie with 1,500 yards and 8 touchdowns this year, but he's not going to because he had Zach throwing it to him for half the season. So you have to take into account the entire team, and don't go by the sunk cost fallacy. Just because you used a 2nd-round pick on him doesn't mean that that's the guy that has to start and has to be the guy that wins you a Super Bowl or a playoff game or whatever it is, because it doesn't. His stats are comparable to Jamarcus Russell through his first 20 games, and Jamarcus had more touchdowns and less interceptions. Let me 20 games.
Let me spin it this way too. If Mike White gets the Jets to the playoffs, is he your QB1 next year?
I don't know.
See that,
but that doesn't make Zach Wilson my QB1 next year.
It doesn't. But what I'm saying is that if you built up all this goodwill, I would have Zach Wilson as my QB2 behind Mike White. But
let me put it this way.
But if you're going to tell me, just quickly, if you're going to tell me that you bring in a veteran and Mike White's your QB2 and Zach Wilson's your QB3, I don't know if I like that.
You'll get something for Zach Wilson. That's the thing. If the trade's not there, it doesn't pay to cut him. But the trade will be. There's no way that some team is not going to give up like a 2nd-round pick for Zach Wilson. There's someone out there.
Seattle.
There's someone out there that would.
Because then that'll be another damn Jets quarterback cast off that does really well in Seattle instead.
Listen, I know Jordan Love did well. Green Bay.
Yeah.
You telling me that he's not going to learn from Aaron Rodgers? They love each other.
Leave Geno Smith alone, Rick.
No, Aaron Rodgers hates Jordan Love. I don't know if he loves any backup quarterback. Did you see what he asked to Sean Kaiser?
Relationship with Zach Wilson, and bringing Zach Wilson in there gives him the time to have a couple more years.
But did you see what he asked to Sean Kaiser? Did you see that interview this week?
Yeah, I saw that. I heard that clip.
We don't have to go into
and
Zach Wilson's
interviews I saw this week, man. None of them were good. None of them were. I didn't like any of them. So,
anyways, moving on.
We're all nuts.
Next team. All right. Next team that could potentially move on from their quarterback this offseason. I mainly put this out of spite, but I also mainly put this because I think the contract is something worth looking at here. Tennessee Titans. So Ryan Tannehill has been pretty good so far in Tennessee. They've made an AFC Championship game appearance under him. They were the number 1 seed last year before they got unceremoniously dumped out in the divisional round. Thank you again, Cincinnati. This season, he's missed a little bit of time, but that hasn't done much to Tennessee. They're still number 1 seed in the AFC South. They're still going to make the playoffs, et cetera, et cetera. But here's the situation. They have a potential out in the contract for 2023 where, yes, the dead cap hit is 18.8, but the cap hit overall right now is $36.6 million. And he is going to become 35 years old for the 2023 season. Rick, I'll start with you. And maybe this would be the one that is probably least likely to happen of all these teams moving on. Potentially, maybe there's one more that happens with it. But what is the thing with the Titans here? Because you look at the landscape of the AFC, you got the Buffalo Bills and the Chiefs. We know they're built for long term. Josh Allen and Mahomes are locked in there. Cincinnati, it depends on if Lamar stays. But you have Baltimore depends on Lamar stays. Cincinnati with Joe Burrow, he's going to be their long-term quarterback for the future. The Chargers, you assume they should be competitive for a while. You have all these teams who are coming up eventually, as well as the Dolphins this year, as we've seen. If you're Tennessee, you can only take advantage of the AFC South being terrible for so long. And maybe you are content with that, but is there a chance of taking a temporary sacrifice to eventually get a new quarterback in there that will help you compete long term with these teams that have just better quarterbacks at the end of the day? So will Tennessee break off from Tannehill now, or will they just keep him next season and they'll just stick with the status quo?
I hear your point about getting in a quarterback who can probably help them compete with Miami and Baltimore and Kansas City and Buffalo and all that. But I got to be honest with you. Who is that guy? I don't see that guy out there that's going to help Tennessee. Tennessee, I think, is going to keep Ryan Tannehill there for another year, maybe another 2. They have their guy. They have Malik Willis. And yeah, he's young, he's raw, he's a project, but he's a guy that is willing to learn. They don't have another option on there. Now, it's funny that we talked about Aaron Rodgers briefly because the bluster about him buying land in Nashville made you believe maybe he could have gone to Tennessee as well. I think that would be a disastrous mistake for the Titans if they go from Ryan Tannehill to Aaron Rodgers. I mean, it'd be a match made in hell, so, good on you, Satan. But I think Tannehill sticks around. I mean, the only question for me really is health. And the Adams family in Tennessee, they're not really one to take that big of a dead cap hit, I would say. Maybe they bring in a third quarterback and they draft a third guy that's behind, a late round guy to be on the roster behind Malik Willis, because that was Logan Woodside and he's gone, I think, or he might be on the practice squad now. Or maybe you package something and you move up and get one of the second tier quarterbacks in this year's draft to compete with Malik for the QB2 spot. But this is Tannehill's team. The only thing that would make me think otherwise is if you have to pay either Tannehill or Derrick Henry. You're obviously going to pay Derrick Henry whatever he wants. If you can't keep them both, you sacrifice Tannehill to keep Derrick Henry. But if you can, at least for now, you hold on to Tannehill, at least for now.
Fair enough. Justin.
Rick, I like your point there. I could see it. Are you a chess player?
Oh yeah.
You lose the king, you lose the game. You keep Derrick Henry. Jerg, financials aside, I think the answer to your question comes down to 2 relatively easy questions. And 1, is Derrick Henry healthy and on your team? And 2, is Malik Willis ready to start? And I think Derrick Henry still has a couple of years left to go. He should be rolling, and Malik Willis is just not ready to take over yet. So at this point, I think you stick to the status quo. He gives you the best option to win. Like I said, maybe they go after someone like a Jimmy Garoppolo in the offseason. That's really the only name I could think of. But I don't necessarily know if it is worth all of that money and it improves you that much. So we'll see. I mean, I don't really think he goes anywhere, to be completely honest.
And I think, too, another point to this is that Jacksonville, I think, is 2 years away now. I think we still got into the year saying they could be 1 year away, but I think they're 2 years away now.
Yeah,
I think they're not ready yet, and they won't be ready next year. Maybe 24 will be their year. Indy has got to figure out who they got. Maybe they're going to blow it up at some point, but I don't know. And then Houston, we already talked about Houston. So this is still Tennessee's division for at least until 2025, I think. So why throw that away if you can keep them both Why throw that away? Because you know you're going to get division championships and playoff appearances. And maybe something breaks your way like it did a couple years ago, and they get to the title game, and you do the best. You're one of the final four.
That's fair. I just figured it was worth discussing, considering it is almost about that time. 35 years old, Ryan Tannehill. Let's see. I mean, we know who's praying for their downfall, especially on this podcast. Last AFC team we're going to bring up here, and again, this is actually a conversation that stems from our coaching hot seat video from a couple weeks back, and this is I don't think it was a report. I think it was more an idea I saw, but I think it's actually there could be some legitimacy here to it. The Las Vegas Raiders. Could Josh McDaniels, that slimy snake, convince Mark Davis, you know what I need, Mark? I need my quarterback here. I need a quarterback that I want to handpick. Would Mark Davis listen to that snake, just like in the tale of Adam and Eve when the snake was listened to bite the apple? I don't know. I'm reaching for references here. I couldn't think of anything else with a snake. But will Mark Davis listen? And Derek Carr, who even though he did sign a 3-year contract extension technically, the dead cap is only $5.6 million next year. That's a $29 million difference. I forgot the extra million there for Mark Davis. $29 million difference between cap hit to dead cap hit for next season for Derek Carr. Does Josh McDaniels convince Mark Davis that they can cut or trade Derek Carr and he can run the team his way? Or does Josh McDaniels actually smart enough and realize Derek Carr is probably the only thing that could help him out on the Raiders and that they'll just keep him? Justin, you first.
See, this is probably the toughest one in my mind on the list that you gave me. Purely because, I mean, I know the Raiders aren't what we projected them to be, but they're not terrible. They're one of these teams that is so in the middle of everything that they're doing right now. I mean, I know they had a rough start. 0-4 is not where you want to be for these kinds of questions. Obviously, that's what causes these kinds of questions. But they're 4-7 now, which means they're 4-3 in their last 7 games. And is Derek Carr having a terrible season? No. I mean, he's got 2,700 passing yards and 18 touchdowns to 7 interceptions. He's doing okay. He's not tops in the league, but he's not the worst quarterback in the league. And he does have a huge cap hit next year. So in my mind, I would assume he's going to stay on the team just for that reason. They went out, they got him the players he needed to have. And he's on pace to maybe have one of the better years in his career. I mean, and again, 11 games in, he's got 18 touchdowns and 7 interceptions and more than halfway to 4,000 yards. So who knows? He should probably pass his numbers from last year. And by the way, last year was his career high in passing yards. Devontae Adams is having a great year, at least statistically. Maybe they stream a couple wins towards the end of the season, make a push for a playoff spot.
Right. It's just an idea I saw. And that's the thing with this list. We don't want to, I'm not here for the conventional conversation of, the Panthers, we know they need a quarterback. Yeah, we know the Texans, they need, professional sports, sometimes the most unexpected things can happen. And this could be one of those instances. That's why they're on this list.
Well, you know what? What's interesting? Ask me this question next week. Because if they beat the Chargers this week,
right,
and they move to 5-7, and then they play the Rams, the Patriots, the Steelers, they could easily be
back in the hunt.
Yeah,
legitimately.
They might have a winning record by the end of the year.
So ask you this question more in 4 weeks, not just 1 week.
Well, no, because I listen. The Patriots game is the only after this week. The Patriots game is really the only one that I'd be shaky about, but it's in Vegas, and I know the Patriots will put up some points. The Raiders should be able to score all over them, and I know I've said that about lots of teams playing the Patriots, but listen, this Raiders team can explode on any team, and you're seeing it with their skill players, with Josh Jacobs and Devontae Adams, both guys in the tops of their position statistically, physically talented. They have the tools For some reason, they weren't able to use them. Let's see what it is in a week or two. As of right now, though, just financially, I don't see how they can move on from him.
Fair enough. Well, I mean, financially, it's not that big of a burden.
I thought it's like a $28 million cap hit.
No,
He's owed a ton of money next year.
The dead cap hit is only $6 million.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, that's why I bring it up. I feel if the dead cap hit was way more, we wouldn't even have considered it.
He's owed a lot of money next year, no?
It says cap for 2023 cap hit $34.87 million, dead cap 5.6. I'm going off of Spotrac unless their info is wrong. That's the info.
They're usually pretty good.
So, yeah, Rick Raiders. Hey, Rick Raiders. But will Derek Carr still be there? Is it just people overreacting? Him and McDaniels need more time. Him and Devontae Adams are friends, et cetera, et cetera. What's the deal?
Well, that's the real question here is what is the stronger bond? Is it Josh McDaniels and Jimmy Garoppolo or the college teammates of Derek Carr and Devontae Adams? And I'm going to tell you something. The last thing you want to do is make your top wide receiver disgruntled because you traded away his college teammate for a quarterback that you think is better.
50% of the reason he wanted to go there in the first place.
Exactly. So not a chance. The Raiders are sticking with Derek Carr. And you know what? If Josh McDaniels doesn't get his way, why don't you go pout and go somewhere else because you're a terrible head coach. So, Derek Carr staying. I mean, again, preseason, before we even talked about this, I thought there was a move that could be made where he could have gone to Atlanta for that draft pick, and the Raiders could have taken that. Once they signed him to the extension, they brought Devontae Adams in. That's your 1-2 combination. And Josh Jacobs is a good third man. So no chance. The Raiders are sticking with Derek Carr, and he's staying there at least for a few more years.
Fair, very fair. And yeah, that'd be funny. 1 year after they brought in Devontae Adams, they trade the quarterback he had wanted to go play with. It's like, well, about that.
Yeah, right.
Although then again, Mark Davis, he's made questionable decisions in the past. This could be the next one. All right. These next two teams are going to kind of be like paired together for a couple of reasons. One, they're in the same division, and two, we've already paired them together once this episode, so why not? Giants and Washington. Now we know the situation of both those teams, both very much in the wild card positioning right now in the NFC. Part of the reason why the NFC East has finally gone from the least to the beast, because that's the best division of football right now, basically. When it comes to both those teams, obviously Taylor Heineke has led this team to 6-1. We mentioned earlier, only lost to the Vikings recently. New York Giants winning record for the first time right now in God knows how long, projected to finish with a winning record as well. Both teams could potentially make the playoffs, actually. Who knows? Maybe just one of them, maybe both. Literally, we need to see the season play out. But I am not one, and many conversations with Rick can attest to this. I'm not one to be tricked by the glamour of, okay, you got us to the playoffs. I'm going to, just pay you all the money in the world and just be tricked by that. It's a little bit more than that. You got to be a little bit smarter to be an NFL general manager. So Rick, I'll throw it to you for both these teams with the Giants and the Washington football team, or Commanders, actually. I forgot they have a name again. When it comes to the Giants and the Commanders, will both move on from their mediocre quarterbacks and go someone better? Will both stay? Will one stay? Will one move? What's the case? What are we dealing with?
Well, I think it really depends upon how the season's finished out, like you said. Washington has something here. They do with Taylor Heineke. I mean, look, yeah, he's 7 touchdowns, 5 interceptions so far, and 1,200 passing yards, but he's making them win. And he's making them believe in themselves. And that's something that I think you can't teach. That's an intangible you can't teach. If only they trusted the fact that, he's good enough to – because I have a sinking feeling Washington's going to bring in another quarterback again because that's just the way it goes. Maybe Dan Snyder has a problem with Old Dominion football players. I don't know. But the Giants' case is a little more interesting because while Daniel Jones has not been the most explosive guy – he hasn't made mistakes that often. But the Dallas game aside, he hasn't made many mistakes. He's been better with the ball. He's been better with managing the clock and managing a team around him. And to be fair, if the Giants don't make the playoffs this year, it's not Daniel Jones' fault. It's the fact that they didn't get anybody around him and Barkley to support that offensive output. It's Joe Shane and Brian Dable who, while they were great for the first 9 games, didn't add anybody in the deadline, traded away a wide receiver who was disgruntled, and now who's apparently the new second coming of Tyreek Hill in Kansas City, apparently. I can see the Giants drafting a quarterback in the first round, very high. I think they can make a move up into the top 10 in the first round and get a quarterback potentially. And you know what? It might be a case where Daniel Jones is there for another year because I know they opted out of his contract, so he might be gone. But it's not really on him. This year he's got nobody to work with, and so I think both these teams will look for a quarterback. One foolishly and stupidly because one's right there, and the other foolishly and stupidly because it's not the fault of the quarterback, even though he's going to get the most flack. It's the fault of the fact you have nobody around him. You're throwing a ball to a 5'7" Wan'Dale Robinson. Like, you drafted him in the third round instead of an offensive lineman or another wide receiver who was a little taller or could catch passes better. I don't know. So I think they both will. I would disagree with it if they both did, but I think they both will.
Okay, Justin, what about you?
I think there will definitely be a new starter next year in Washington. I mean, as good as Heineke has played, and that spark, and he's a team guy, and everyone loves him, he's just not the guy to take them to that next level. And I think that, depending on who the owner and the coach is next year, because if they suffer a collapse, you could easily see Ron Rivera out as well, considering he's had basically just been in a stalemate with himself for the last 4 years or 5 years, however long he's been. So I think that you'll probably see a new one in Washington. The Giants situation is interesting to me because I don't see them getting that quarterback that's ready to start day one and be your franchise quarterback in free agency. I don't see it in the draft. It's going to come down to numbers and not stat numbers. It's going to come down to money. There's going to be guys out there. Geno Smith's a free agent. I know he wants to go back to Seattle, but if the money's not right there, Jimmy Garoppolo again. I'm going to say it every time. He's going to end up being one of the top quarterback free agents out there. This is the situation where you're going to see: is it financially reasonable to keep Daniel Jones, or are we going to get another quarterback to start in his stead while we try and train a rookie? Because they are going to draft a quarterback next year. I'd be shocked if they didn't. So I think it's going to end up working out for them and they'll keep Daniel Jones, but they don't have to be married to the idea. So it really will be coming down to how much they think he's worth and how much does Daniel Jones think he's worth.
See, my one problem with that thought, though, and it's a good thought, Justin, my one problem with that is I don't think you're talking about the money as much as you're talking about the years. I think if the Giants are going to keep Daniel Jones, it's going to be on a multi-year contract because I don't think they're going to
love to sign him to like a 2 or 3 year deal,
which will hamstring you for a couple of years while you bring in your rookie, right?
It depends on the deal. Let's say what if you sign him to an upfront contract? It's not going to. You're not going after all these big name free agents next year. You might be, but I don't necessarily know if that's going to be what's best in the best interest for your team. So if you have a 3-year, $60 million, but he gets paid $20 million in the first year. Or he gets paid $30 million in the first year, and then it goes down every year. It might be worth it to sign him, and then maybe the third year is an option.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So it'll depend on what numbers they come up with, and how much money they think he's worth. Is it worth having Daniel Jones there for another year? If you're going to pay him $30 million next year, that's a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What if he doesn't accept a $30 million upfront and then
which would be wild
the next 2 years? You know what I mean? Maybe he wants a long-term contract. You don't know. So I really think I think the best fit for him will be the Giants. I think the best fit for the Giants is Daniel Jones. He knows the offense. He knows what Dable wants to do there, and they'll get pieces around him, whether or not it's the draft or free agency or whatever. By the way, very weak free agency wide receiver. This year.
Yeah,
the class is not great, so they'll have to probably draft one. But yeah, he's the best fit there. I expect him to go back. It's just got to make sense with the dollars and cents.
dollars and cents. Perfectly for Danny Dimes right there.
Exactly.
Perfect segue. Yeah, no, at the end of the day, I can definitely see both your points. I can see Washington more so sticking to, that should be a would you rather. Who would you pay $30 million up front to, Taylor Heineke or Daniel Jones? We know what Rick would answer. but honestly, I may not have much of a choice in that endeavor either. But I'm with you guys. I can see the thought process for keeping both. And I think probably Washington might be forced to, all things considered. I think with New York, like, I understand the idea he's not making as many mistakes. They're hiding their quarterback a lot. And it's reminding me of when the Jaguars made the AFC Championship game against the Patriots. And part of the reason why they lost that game in the fourth quarter was because they didn't trust Blake Bortles and they hit him against the Patriots, and that cost them the game. They gave him a contract extension the next season, and we saw what that collapse afterwards. Like, Daniel Jones is giving me Blake Bortles vibes in that essence of, if you're going to commit long-term to him, you got to expect that at some point, like, you can only win by hiding your quarterback for so long in this league. Like, you can only win so many games like that before it's going to come back to bite you. And that's why I've talked about the Giants being so unsustainable this season. Like, this has been a great season. Keyword is season. Daniel Jones past this season, I don't know. And to your point, Justin, if they do end up going with that mindset, which I wouldn't necessarily hate, because if it's more so all the money's in year 1 and year 2, 3 is more flexibility for them, I think that actually would be very smart on the Giants' end. If Daniel Jones doesn't,
Great for Daniel Jones too. I mean, you're
yeah.
getting $30 million. You get a $50 million contract with $30 million up front and an $8 million signing bonus. So all of a sudden he makes $38 million in the first year, and they only have to pay him $12 million over the next 2 while they look for a long-term solution. But that being said, you're also saying, hey, you're not our guy. How big is his ego?
It does not deserve to be big in any way, shape, or form. I hate to break it.
You know what? You never know with these guys. I've never heard anything bad about Daniel Jones. He seems like a really stand-up guy. What if he says, screw you, you don't believe in me, then I'll go somewhere else. You know what I mean? And it's not about the money anymore. So it's an interesting situation. I think it'll be in the best interest for both guys to sign, but it'll really be determined on what they can actually work out.
Right. Well, there's one guaranteed thing we could say about both those teams is that Carson Wentz will probably not be in the NFL anymore after this season.
Absolutely not.
Depends if he wants to be a backup or not.
Yeah.
Honestly, at this point, Carson Wentz could just go away.
I'll sign him as a backup.
He could just go away. I'm not saying he'd be a bad backup quarterback. Would he? Probably not. And if that's the case, bye-bye. Anyways, maybe he could be the next Seattle Seahawks quarterback if they don't keep Geno Smith and someone pays him. Who knows? All right. Last couple teams here that we have on the list. The last 2, I think, will be interesting discussion. This one, I think it's more, do you make the decision now or do you wait 1 more year? Detroit Lions. We know Jared Goff's role on that team has been to be the bridge quarterback for their eventual next guy to come in. And the whole thing and this is something we've all sung our praises for Detroit, they're building the rest of the team. Boom, Penei Sewell's here. Boom, Amon-Ra St. Brown. Need some more receiving depth, but you have him. DeAndre Swift and Jamal Williams are an amazing running back team. They're trying to build up core pieces to that defense. Jeff Okudah, much better this season than what he looked in his rookie season. I can't say last year because he got injured in the second year. Aiden Hutchinson has had a couple games where he's looked good. You need a little bit more consistency. That defense is still so young, but they still need more pieces. So they're trying to build the rest of that team. Justin, to you first. Do the Lions go for 1 more year to say the time is not right to get our next our true young quarterback? Do they wait 1 more year, or do they pull that trigger this year because they have 2 first-round picks, one of them being the Rams pick? It's going to be an extremely high pick. Do they use that Rams pick on a quarterback and just continue to build the rest of the team from there?
Well, I was going to say, which pick do you think they end up using on a quarterback? Because it's not like the Detroit Lions pick is going to be much higher. I know that they're currently 13, but they're one of like 6 teams that are 4-7, and there's a bunch of teams that are 4-8. I think that there's definitely another quarterback on the roster that next year that is not on the team this year. Again, it's going to be another one that comes down to financials, because I don't believe Jared Goff is under contract there next year. I believe his contract is up. He only had 2 years left from that mega deal he signed in Detroit, and he's for sure not getting the money that he just got. So it depends how high that Lions pick is going to be. They're definitely taking a quarterback. I expect him to get one of the top 3 quarterbacks in the draft next season. So he could be on the team. He might not be starting.
Rick, this is one of the teams you've caped up for.
Yeah, I mean, Jared Goff is, he hasn't been the true answer, but again, he hasn't been bad. So he's again, look at his career stats. The guy has double the touchdowns to interceptions. He just gets saddled with bad teams are making bad decisions once in a while, and it costs them games.
It's his decision making that kills
Yeah.
him. There's just certain things like the Bills game the other week.
Yeah.
Why are you going for it all on a fourth down when you had other players, in the middle of the field? Take the first down. It doesn't have to be an all or nothing play on fourth down.
So the last mock draft that I saw had the Lions at 5-8. And actually that mock draft had them trading up the 5 with Chicago to number 2 to pick Will Levis from Kentucky, the quarterback. The problem is that there's no backups there. Tim Boyle and David Blau are not the answers. They are also rans on the next season of The Bachelor, in my opinion. Jared Goff needs to tutor a young quarterback. Have him have one more year, maybe 2. Maybe they go the Green Bay mold where Goff is the guy for 3 years, and then that rookie is able to step in, because that's what happened with Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers. It's a mold that works when the other quarterback isn't Aaron Rodgers, because he's, Aaron Rodgers. But it's a mold that works. So they'll bring in a quarterback now this year. They will draft one, because you're never going to get this chance to draft twice this high ever again. But they're still going to start Jared Goff in 2023. I think he's still good enough to get them places. They just need a few extra pieces, and everyone's got to stay healthy as well for them. That's a big thing too. I mean, health is a big key for the Lions, but they're moving in the right direction.
Very true. And I will say, because I just looked over his contract, it's a very similar thing with these other quarterbacks. It's actually, there is an out in the deal, but there are 2 years left on Jared Goff's contract when it comes to the Detroit Lions. So they have the flexibility to keep him if they so choose. I'm kind of with you, Rick. Because I mentioned the Houston Texans for a reason, because, spoiler alert, I don't think the Houston Texans should get their next quarterback this season. I think when it comes to that quarterback's going to get David Card. That's what's going to happen to that quarterback. He's going to get sacked 85 times. Tell me one starter aside from Larry Tunsil that you have any confidence in on that Texans offense.
Well, let me just say, as of right now, Houston has got the 1st and the 10th pick. So
yeah, and neither should be used on a quarterback.
More offensive linemen and sign guys, and they have a lot of cap space as well. There's going to be some opportunity for that team to get a lot better this year.
CJ Stroud and Bryce Young's career will be over within 4 years if they go to Houston.
Wait. What are the odds of you getting a chance at a CJ Stroud or a Bryce Young the next year?
I don't think they're that. Personally, I don't think either one of them is that good. I'll be honest with you.
Okay, what the top quarterback in a draft that is supposedly a quarterback-heavy draft? These guys are supposed to be the highly touted, big-name players.
You got to give them a chance. You got to give them a real chance.
I hate to say this, but we all thought Zach Wilson was going to be the same way, and now I think there's a good core. I said not all, but there's a good portion that all thought Zach Wilson was going to be the same way, and now that core is saying the Jets should draft Justin Fields instead of Zach Wilson.
I think there's a bit of a difference between Zach Wilson, who came up his last year, where these guys have been at least 2 to 3 years of idea. CJ Stroud, people have been looking forward to see what CJ Stroud would be since he was a high school senior. That is not Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson, I didn't even know he existed until his last year in BYU.
Yeah, and we all knew that the guy in that draft was Trevor Lawrence. That's Jacksonville passing on Trevor Lawrence to take a different kind of player, as opposed to, you know what I mean? It's not like, I'm not saying that either one of these guys is Trevor Lawrence. Is going to be as good as Trevor Lawrence. It's going to be better than Trevor Lawrence. It's going to be worse. I don't know. That's not my job at this point. We'll deal with that in the offseason. But you have the number 1 pick in what is supposed to be, again, a 5 quarterback first round. They are fully expecting these guys to be some of the top guys in the league coming forward. All right.
Well, obviously what that means is that Davis Mills is not the answer, which I would agree with. But I mean, I don't know if I trust either one of those guys to be that answer.
But who would you rather have right now? You tell me, you'd rather have CJ Stroud or Davis Mills?
Well, talented CJ Stroud. Is that a question?
So then what are we talking about here?
What I'm saying is that I know I've got us off topic, so I apologize to the people. But what I'm saying is that I'm not putting my quarterback. I don't want to put a young quarterback in front of an offensive line where it's 5 traffic cones / turnstiles.
So then you start Davis Mills next year. That's fine. But you take the quarterback. But you take the quarterback.
I don't know. I think they could. I don't know.
I think the way it is now.
You get a chance at CJ Stroud the next year.
But here's the thing.
Stroud-ish.
But here's the thing. Am I comfortable in Houston with saying that I've drafted a quarterback at number 1 and I'm going to sit him for a year or two?
No,
I'm
I
not
would
comfortable
start
with
him,
that.
but the argument is no matter what your plan of action is, you take the quarterback.
I don't know, man.
I mean, they've killed a quarterback's career before, so it wouldn't be the first time.
Will Anderson from Alabama is a beast on the defensive edge. He could be the next J.J. Watt.
Does that include the injuries?
How many Super Bowls does J.J. Watt have?
Does that include the injuries?
But my point though is that
Are teams winning playoff games because they have J.J. Watt?
What I'm saying is that he's like that next generational defensive talent.
Hall of Famer.
You don't know that about these quarterbacks.
You don't know that about this kid that you're talking about, whose name I already forgot.
Will Anderson.
Yeah, Will Anderson.
It's not a hard name to say, Justin.
I get distracted.
Rick,
listen again. If you were a team like Jacksonville and you had the first pick again, and you're like, well, I'll pair him up with all these guys that I had last year. Sure, take him. You have a quarterback already that you're not, losing. You can even make the argument more about the Jets, even though I think they should take a quarterback. If the Jets had the first round pick, that they should take Will Anderson over CJ. Houston has no one. You cannot guarantee that if you have the first round pick next year, that there's going to be a talent like CJ Stroud or Bryce Young, or even the kid from Kentucky, Will Levis.
Unless they trade the number 1 pick for Zach Wilson.
Justin, you say you can't guarantee it, but I feel like we're hyping up this quarterback class, but was it not 2 years ago that Trevor Lawrence came through, and now just 2 years later it's these guys? Like, we're starting to get to a point where every single draft class, for the most part, is having at least one guy, and Houston's going to be terrible for the next.
I don't disagree with that,
except
for this year, maybe.
I don't
disagree with that.
Hang on a second. Everybody and their mother said Kenny Pickett and Malik Willis were going in the first round this year.
That too.
So, it's different, and you know it.
I know it is, but I'm saying
everyone and their grandmother has said Kenny Pickett and Malik Willis are going to. If there's a first round pick quarterback, that these were the guys. They didn't say they were going. All of the experts had them saying if there's going to be a first round pick, it's either Kenny Pickett or Malik Willis, and they were right. It was Kenny Pickett, but I mean, he's doing okay, but like.
They need to fire their offensive coordinator. They need a real offensive coordinator.
You just hate Matt Canada.
Yes, I do. I'll admit it. He is the Ryan Tannehill of offensive coordinators for me. Anyways, our last 2 teams. Let's move on. I don't even know who to start with on this one because I forgot who I started with in the last one. The Green Bay Packers.
Yeah.
The Green Bay Packers are next. Now, we know this is Rick's favorite quarterback we're about to bring up here. So I'm actually going to start with Rick here. Rick, this has been easily the worst season of Aaron Rodgers' career. That has been a healthy season for the most part. He's allegedly been dinged up. He's allegedly had 15 broken ribs and 3 hemorrhaged lungs and whatever else they're saying on the injury report for him. I don't know what else they've said at this point. But the fact of the matter is the Green Bay Packers, for the first time in a 100% fully healthy Aaron Rodgers season, are going to be one of the top 5 worst teams in the league. Doesn't fit. Normally when they do, he's been injured in those previous seasons. He's playing every single game so far, and they're going to be one of the worst teams in the league. They have a young quarterback who they know nothing about, Jordan Love. They're going to play him for the rest of the season. Aaron Rodgers, some people talking about body language, some people saying this and that. I'm not saying that they would trade him to move on for good. Do you think the Packers need to fight to convince him to not retire? Or, and this is a question, do you think if you're the Packers, would you let Aaron Rodgers retire to see what you have with Jordan Love, or do you convince him to come back and that you'll figure this whole thing out? Because I believe there's still 3 years left on his contract, if I'm not mistaken. So
I'm going to meander a little bit with this. Just bear with me for a second.
All right, Justin, we can mute.
The 2002 film Nicholas Nickleby, starring Charlie Hunnam, Jim Broadbent, and Nathan Lane, and Christopher Plummer, had a scene where they were referring to a theater company that did Romeo and Juliet every single year. And the same character was Romeo every single year until Charlie Hunnam's character, Nicholas Nickleby, joined the troupe. To which Nathan Lane turned to the character and said, "Old friend, maybe it's time you moved on from Romeo." And the character said, "To what?" And somebody said, "King Lear, perhaps?" The point is, Aaron Rodgers, get out Green Bay. Green Bay, get rid of Aaron Rodgers. He is a cancer to your team. He is a virus. He is not a good quarterback anymore. And I personally believe that all he's doing is sucking up the life out of Jordan Love, because Jordan Love needs to be a QB1. because he's learned enough. I mean, got to give the kid a shot this year and see what happens. But this is telling. Matthew Stafford goes on IR. He knows that he's hurt, and he knows that he's not going to help the team out. Aaron Rodgers has a broken thumb on his throwing hand. Yeah, I'm fine. I can play. Really? You think you can play? I'm sorry. It's not healthy for the Packers to stay with a quarterback who doesn't know when it's time to move on or doesn't know when it's time to give up the ship, because it's time. Green Bay, it's time. Get rid of him, because Matt LaFleur's on the chopping block otherwise. It's Aaron Rodgers has to go. You've got to get the next quarterback in there, and you've got to get somebody who can at least try to be better. And you'll cut your losses in a way, and you'll make yourself a happy franchise once again. I'm sorry for the tangent about that, but I had a point to get to. And the point was, get out of the way, Aaron Rodgers.
I did not expect the movie reference there, to say the very least. Justin, just so I can give you the proper context of what Aaron Rodgers' contract is like next season. So for 2023, his age 40 season, look at that. His cap hit is going to be $31.6 million. His dead cap hit is $99.7 million. Now, obviously, you can't cut him, no duh. And I don't think trading him is any possible whatsoever either. And I don't know what the cap ramifications.
I think there are teams that would take him.
I'm not saying teams wouldn't take him. I'm saying what would the cap
He's got led to Nashville.
Be? So I don't know what the cap ramifications would be if he chose to retire. What do you make of the whole situation in Green Bay? Because I think we can all agree at least Jordan Love should get a shot to prove why, if he was the 17-game starter, they would go like 4-13. But regardless, he deserves at least a chance to see what he can do.
Let's address a few points. Okay. Aaron Rodgers is injured this year. Okay. Aaron Rodgers is also the reason that they are 4-8. It's not because of the lack of talent at receiver, although they are not the best team receiver-wise. Their young players have played decently. Aaron Rodgers has missed open throws. Aaron Rodgers is the issue there, for sure. His attitude is not great. Whatever. I don't know if it ever was great. I've heard bad things. I don't know the guy. The injury that is the most prevalent currently is clearly the thumb injury. He can drive the ball down the field, but his accuracy has wavered because he does not have the grip on the ball that he has had in previous seasons. That is the issue. Okay? That Tennessee Titan game, they could have easily won that game. He was missing wide open throws. It was clear that his grip is off and he cannot throw the ball with the type of accuracy that he would like to. Should he play this week? I don't know. They're kind of out of it. They're technically not eliminated yet. As long as they're alive, I agree. Just throw your best option in there. Aaron Rodgers is still Aaron Rodgers. He's still a Hall of Famer. He's not fallen off the cliff like Ben Roethlisberger. It's Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers should start as long as they are in contention. They lose this week. They're knocked out, whatever it is. Let's see what they have in Jordan Love. I didn't see him play in Philly. I had fallen asleep. It was a long day. I heard he played fantastic. I think Darius Slay actually said that he low-key looked like Aaron Rodgers back there. Let's see what you got. Absolutely. Next year, you have a Hall of Fame quarterback. I expect him to be fully healthy. I don't expect his grip problems to proceed through another year. He'll have a full offseason to heal. You're sticking with Aaron Rodgers, especially with that cap hit. You're not trading him. There's no way you get enough to trade him because no one's going to trade that much for a 40-year-old quarterback who's owed, what was it, Jurg?
The dead cap hit is $99 million.
Yeah. So, what do we talk? Come on. Aaron Rodgers is the quarterback in Green Bay. Aaron Rodgers will be the quarterback in Green Bay next year. It is what it is. There's nothing to talk about. He'll be better. I am confident that he will be a better player next year, assuming he doesn't break his thumb on his throwing hand again. It's still Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is the guy there. Aaron Rodgers. Retirement? What? Why would he retire? He's owed all this money. He still has the physical tools to play the game. He could still throw the ball all the way down the field with a broken thumb. It's his accuracy that's the issue currently. It's the receivers. Not great. Allen Lazard is probably the best receiver that they have. He's also probably going to be the best free agent receiver next year. He'll probably get a lot of money. I don't know if it's with Green Bay or not.
Probably not.
It's a different question for a different day.
Jordan Love, by the way, Jordan Love, by the way, was 6 of 9 for 113 yards and a touchdown against Philadelphia.
Yeah, but the one touchdown was like a 75-yard touchdown.
Oh yeah, no.
On a crossing route that Allen Lazard did all the work, or Christian.
The more point that I was trying to make was that Aaron Rodgers only threw for 140 yards. Jordan Love threw for 113 in lesser action. I'm just I was more telling you how he did.
But did you watch the game? Because in the first
I
3
did.
quarters, they were running all over the Eagles. He didn't need
Of
to throw
course.
the ball that way.
Which is actually something we've complained about on the show before, that they go away from the running game.
Yeah.
Like the Packers would probably be a lot better if they actually used Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon way more effectively.
And when Aaron Rodgers came out, they were kind of out of the game anyways. Philly exploded for a couple.
But that's the point that we were talking about with
the issue is that they had the turnover because Aaron Rodgers does not have the command over the ball that Aaron Rodgers normally has. It's the broken thumb.
But the other problem too is that Aaron Rodgers also audibles to his own play whatever he wants to do in the huddle, like he did with McCarthy.
I'm not sitting here talking about his attitude.
Right.
You're right.
Right.
He's not. I don't know if he's the best guy. I don't know if he's getting in the way of the play calling or the scheme or what they want to do. But whatever they've wanted to do this year, it's not working schematically. And when it is working, he's been the issue. I'm not debating that. He's the guy next year. It's not whether or not Jordan Love is ready. He's the guy next year.
Speaking of who's going to be the guy next year, this last team is interesting because, well, it's a similar situation. San Francisco 49ers. Justin, I'm going to throw it to you first. Obviously, they made Trey Lance the starter, the heir apparent at the start of the season. He gets hurt. Gone for the rest of the year. Heals up. Well, we're assuming he's going to heal properly. We're assuming he's learning the playbook way more than what he did because obviously I think it was pretty apparent that he didn't know everything at the start of the season, and he's going to come back next year. Will Jimmy G be back as a San Francisco 49er is the question, because once again, somehow, some way, the 49ers find success with Jimmy Garoppolo under Pat. Justin, the question to you is, what the hell are the 49ers going to do with this quarterback situation next season? Because we know Jimmy G, they reworked his contract, so he is a free agent after this year, but he's once again found success with them, and they're primed for a potential deep playoff run as well, yet again. What do you do if you're San Francisco in this situation? Because I can see arguments for like several different scenarios playing out.
What would I do, or what should they do?
Let's say, what should they do?
What would I do, or what would they do? Is the question.
Give us both for the hell of it. Just give us both. What would you do? What should they do?
Guy there. I think that he's had nothing but success. He wins. I know he gets injured. I know that he's had trouble getting over that hump. But 2 NFC Championship games and a Super Bowl appearance happened under Jimmy G. It is what it is. That's the way the offense runs through Jimmy G. When you had Trey Lance out there, you guys were all right. He's technically 0-1. I know it was a rain game. It was a rough day for him. You don't know what you have in Trey Lance. Maybe he's the guy. Maybe he's your guy in the future. I can't say for sure, but I would keep Jimmy G. And if I was given a good enough trade package for Trey Lance, I might consider it. But I don't necessarily think they're going to do that. I think that they've kind of priced themselves out of Jimmy G. They're going to need to spend their money in other places. They're a very, very good football team, but they get hurt. So they need some depth. They're going to need to sign some mid-level free agents. They're going to need to draft well. And I think they go with Trey Lance next year. I think Jimmy G will probably leave just because he's going to get contract offers that are going to blow San Francisco out of the water. So it's unfortunate for them because I think he would like to stay and I think they would like to keep him. They're not going to be able to afford him.
Fair. And also, you talk about contracts and where else they got to spend. Nick Bosa is a guy they're going to have to pay really soon here, to say the very least. So
they're going to have to. Did they make an extension with McCaffrey?
I don't think so, but he's already. They may have to rework the deal because he was on an extension from Carolina when they traded for him. So there may be a reworking of that contract.
They're going to have to rework Ayuk probably too. They're going to have to. There's a lot of guys that are going to need to be paid. Yeah. And they're going to want to add talent because they are a Super Bowl caliber roster.
Right. Rick, what's the situation here? Is it that tried and true that they're just going to go back with Trey Lance next year and let Jimmy G walk? Or
I have two scenarios on my head. One, they're both kind of outlandish, but one's a little bit more reasonable than the other. Scenario number one is Super Bowl or bust. If Jimmy Garoppolo leads San Francisco back to the Super Bowl again, win or lose, I think they're going to pay him whatever he's owed. Because again, like Justin said, 2 NFC title games and 2 Super Bowl appearances, you don't throw away a quarterback like that. You don't. I know his injury history is a little wonky, but Jimmy Garoppolo is your guy in San Francisco. Now, scenario number 2 that I just thought of, which I think we can all laugh about here, is the Niners do a sign and trade. They signed Garoppolo. They traded him to Green Bay for Aaron Rodgers.
Why do I have a feeling you were going to do that?
I just wanted to laugh a little bit. I mean, again, like in a way, though, Aaron Rodgers gets to go closer to home because he's from that Chico, California area. He's from Berkeley. So it would work in that way. It would be terrible for the 49ers, but can you honestly tell me that John Lynch wouldn't do something like that?
Let me just say this. If we want to talk about free agent quarterbacks from California, we're forgetting a major one.
Joe Montana's still playing, is he?
Who's always been linked to the 49ers?
Brady?
Tom Brady. Free agent next year. Tampa Bay seems to be in shambles.
Yeah.
And San Francisco seems to be ready to roll. They could always use another receiver, but they got Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk. Mitchell has been very good when healthy, which is very rare. And they have a guy named Christian McCaffrey there. Solid offensive line, top 5 defense.
Yeah. Well, because that was the idea behind Devontae Adams, right? It was a sign and trade, I believe. Or not. It wasn't a sign and trade that way. It was a he went there.
It's not the same as like the sign and trade in the NBA because the rules are different. You can't kind of do that. But I think they traded the rights to sign Devontae Adams to an extension. Is the way it goes, and then Devontae Adams signed an extension from whatever deal he had in Green Bay.
But that,
however many years.
Yeah, but that might be a similar way, like you're talking about Tom Brady. Like you can trade Garoppolo to Tampa Bay and give them the rights to the extension. Tom Brady goes to San Francisco, signs a short-term deal, and he tutors Trey Lance. And then Trey Lance becomes the next great Tom Brady pupil.
So no matter what, you don't see Trey Lance starting next year.
I don't. I look, I don't think he's ready. I think he's got a lot to learn, and I think he might not even last past next year. I'll be honest with you. I think
he doesn't stay healthy. He might.
Yeah,
he might be gone.
I think unfortunately I'm going to lump him in the category that I don't like lumping him into because I believe that he could be good, but he could be the next D. Milner.
Oh no,
I don't know about that. I think he's already past D. Milner status. He's already.
I mean, you'd say that now, but you never know. Yeah. Or Vernon Golston.
Look, I think that there's unless they do that crazy Brady idea or like trade for another quarterback or whatever, if they have a quick first round out or a disappointing second round exit with Jimmy G, they might not even offer him anything. They might just say, hey, Trey Lance, please stay healthy this year, please.
You could see a San Francisco-Seattle first round game.
Yeah.
That'd be something.
That'd be a lot of fun.
Hey, Geno Smith is always available, San Fran, for the record. Get in 2 Ring of Honors instead of just 1.
Great.
No, it's really interesting. I think the thing with Trey Lance and why I really do think they're going to be dead set on getting him to start, they have to trade a lot to pick him at number 3 overall. And I think Shanahan and Lynch, I think internally, what we don't know, I think there's pressure on them internally to make sure Trey Lance works out. I don't think it's much of a choice. I think Trey Lance will probably take over at some point.
We're seeing a lot of these teams now where they don't buy into that sunk cost fallacy that just because you've sunk all these assets in, if it's not working, the quicker you recognize that it's not working and move on, the better off your team is. You look at the Arizona Cardinals, and I know they're not ideal right now, but if they were still starting Josh Rosen, there'd be an issue.
Well, remember, but they didn't trade up. They didn't trade up for Josh Rosen.
Carolina.
That was their natural.
We have the roster. Let's trade for a quarterback.
But here's the
Colts.
thing.
We have a roster. Let's get a quarterback.
But that's the thing with these quarterbacks. With some of them, Josh Rosen was the naturally drafted. They didn't trade up to get Josh Rosen.
No, I know, and I know they put a ton more.
Difference.
They put a ton more into getting Trey Lance than the Cardinals did for Josh Rosen. But at what point do you say, I don't know how long I'm going to have Joey Bosa in his prime? How long my secondary is going to be keeping teams scoreless in the second half? How long I'm going to have Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, and Christian McCaffrey healthy on a roster? I don't care how many first-round picks you traded for him that 2 years ago. If he's not healthy now, if he's not the guy performing now, and I have a chance to get that guy whatever way, free agency, draft, trade, whatever, I'm not wasting more time on a developmental quarterback like Trey Lance. Let's say Trey Lance becomes the guy, and in 4 years, their defense is shit.
Swear jar.
All right. Where does that leave you? You're not a contender anymore. Just because Trey Lance is good doesn't make you a contender.
It's true.
Yeah. So we'll see. But those were 8 teams that are definitely going to be in interesting conversations this year, and their quarterbacks are probably going to be up for that discussion, at least for most of them. Some of them apparently not so. Some more than others, some not so. And at the end of the day, we know in Rick's world, Taylor Heineke is his starting quarterback
For life.
For life. For life.
Oh,
Speaking of for life, the Sports Agents of Chaos pick challenge is here, ladies and gentlemen. Ironically, with the number 4. This is how it goes. Quickest rundown possible. 4 picks, 4 through 1. Most confident, least confident. Everyone must pick at least one upset. And it's based on the order of what we are in the season so far. Rick, you are the ultimate record keeper. Why are you shaking your head at me?
Why do you hate jovial conversation?
I don't
understand.
I don't.
In any
we are
event,
show to keep going here.
in any event.
Well, Justin has a 5 o'clock hair appointment. We have to make sure he gets there on time.
Wow. Okay. Call it just out like that. Really? All right.
I mean, I don't know. I'm just guessing. Rick, you know how long it takes? Like, look, I'm not one to talk. My hair is terrible. Justin has to do a lot to maintain that amazing flow.
I'm trying to talk and move on the show here, Jerry. You're slowing me down here.
Yeah, how the tables are
right, if we're slowing down, I might as well break some more news. The Lions have activated first-round pick Jameson Williams.
Nice.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Well, the minister of loquaciousness and not knowing what the time codes are, that would be Jurg, leads with 74 points in our bracket. Justin is at 71. After my strong week last week, I'm at 49, and the Deer is at 45. So I've avoided calamity for the moment, and I look to continue to avoid calamity with my 4-point pick. I am going to take, and you'll understand why I'm not taking some games because, again, my picks all came in the preseason when I thought teams who were doing poorly would be doing better, and the vice versa. So my 4-point pick of the picks that I have that makes the most sense to me is a team that needs to have a comeback after last week's devastating loss, and that would be the Baltimore Ravens defeating the Denver Broncos at the 4-point pick. Thank you, Lamar Jackson. Keep Russell Wilson being terrible, and make Nathaniel Hackett lose his job after next week. Thank you.
All right. Well, that leaves me with my true only pick that I was very, very much confident in, and that's probably going to be the Cowboys over the Colts.
Yeah, fair enough. Cowboys have served me well, Justin. I hope they serve you well as well.
I appreciate that.
All right. Well, there is... Wait, where's this game? I have lost it, even though I just had it on my screen. Where? Oh, here it is. Jesus. All right. This is the last game that I'm definitively confident in, but give me the Seahawks over the Rams.
Yeah.
That Rams team is just not good. They're it's just bad. It's just really, really bad. So give me them. My 3-point pick. I was hoping you guys would leave one of those games for me potentially. Because I was convinced Rick was going to go Washington first 3-point pick.
Listen, if I was leaving the Cowboys game, it's because I was probably going to take that Seahawks-Rams game. So
fair enough.
Reminder, Jurg, if I didn't take Washington, why do you think that is?
I don't know. You got something. You got to fill in the blank there.
Well, no. If I
the
didn't
Giants
take
going to win.
Exactly. That's my preseason pick was the Giants beating them in this game, and I'm not confident in that for 4. So,
fair enough. All right. With my upset, all right, this team has served me well a couple times this season, and I don't know why they're not favored right now, which, by the way, we're basing our lines off of what ESPN gives us, which ESPN's lines are brought to them by Justin.
Caesar Sportsbook.
Thank you. The Chargers are 2.5-point dogs going into Vegas. So give me the Chargers for that one. Easy 3-point pick there.
Okay. I have a question. There's 2 games that currently do not have a favored team.
Right. They're 2 even.
Does that mean they cannot be picked as an upset or an underdog?
I would say so.
Technically speaking, yeah.
Okay. I'm not going to pick either one, but just curious.
I was going to say, why would you?
I don't think I'm going to pick my upset here. I'm not sure who maybe I will pick an upset. No, you know what? I'm going to go with my gut, and my gut is telling me that the Kansas City Chiefs are the team that is going to win this week. I know the Bengals are on a roll, but it's been a long time since Kansas City won in Cincinnati. I think that they're probably top 3 team in the league this year. They need to win this game. I think they're going to win. Okay, I'm going to go with Kansas City.
All right. Then I'm going to go for my 3-point pick, which I was hoping you would leave me. Atlanta over Pittsburgh. I'll take it 3. It's an even game, but I trust Marcus Mariota and that offense a lot more than I do Kenny Pickett, especially without Najee Harris. I think that makes Pittsburgh a lot more one-dimensional. It's a problem. So I'll go in there. And then at 2 points, so I'm tempted to go against a guy that I've been railing on this entire episode. But Miami's an underdog against San Francisco. I don't get it. Justin, you seem to know more than I do. Why is Miami an underdog in San Francisco?
Because it's in San Francisco, and again, in the last 4 games, San Francisco hasn't let up a single point in the second half. They have a top 5 defense. They're, I think, 3rd in points allowed, and as good as Miami is offensively, defensively they struggled.
The master versus
in theory,
the
they're going to give the X factor to San Francisco at home.
Okay, I see. I suppose that makes sense.
I picked the Dolphins in my work league.
Yeah, I'm thinking about that too. Because will the other game still be there? Possibly. So I'll go Dolphins over the 49ers at 2. And we'll see if any of you decide to take the game that I'm thinking of. So,
okay, I have 2 upsets in mind. I have to take one now. One of them is a good team playing another good team that I think matches up very well. And the other one is a bad team playing a bad team that realistically probably should lose, but does nothing but benefit in every single way if they win. And do I go with my heart or do I go with my head? That is the question. I think I'm going to go with my heart. And if it's there, I'll go with my head in a 2-point pick. I'm going to pick the Houston Texans to beat the Cleveland Browns.
I like it. I
think there's no way that this is not the hardest that Houston plays all year. They are going to want to beat down Deshaun Watson, the quarterback that spurned them. They have their pick. There's no way that winning would put them lower in the draft because they have such a big gap. So if they can get that better draft pick, they can stay where they are. They can do whatever they can. I think the crowd is going to be raucous. I think that they match up well because they have an excellent defensive line. They're going to do everything they can to hold down Nick Chubb and make Deshaun Watson beat them, and they're going to get after him. And let's not forget, it's a quarterback that hasn't played in 2 years, has 1 week of practice under his belt in a brand new offense with new players. There's not going to be a lot of chemistry there. I'm going to say that there's going to be an upset stunner, and this is a trap game for Cleveland. This is their Super Bowl this year, and I don't think they win it.
Especially after coming off the win they had against Tampa in last week. It's definitely a letdown game for them. Yeah, absolutely.
I love it. I was actually considering that for like my 1-point pick if it had been there the entire time.
Yeah.
That's a good one though. That's a good one. All right, my 2-point pick. Going a couple different directions here. There are still some fun games available. No one's touched the Eagles-Titans game yet, which I find interesting to say the least. Now it is equal. It's pretty close to -4.5 on paper. Derrick Henry can do some damage. The Eagles gotta think
4.5 for the Eagles.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Like you said 1.5.
Oh no, I said 4.5. I mean, my nose is a little stuffy, so maybe it sounds like 1. So
it's the sinuses. Yeah, that for sure.
Yeah, exactly. So honestly, I know Derrick Henry could go off, but the Eagles have been so good. I just don't have a lot of faith in that Titans defense. Give me the Eagles for my 2-point pick. And for my 1-point pick, see, I'm tempted to pick this game, but I still get sneaking suspicions. It's a 1:00 game, so that's kind of why I want to pick it. Because this quarterback plays so much better at 1:00 for some reason. Man, but I do not have faith in that defense. But it's just a 1 point pick. Yeah, screw it. Minnesota Vikings over the Jets for the 1 pointer.
Wow, continue to piss off and irritate your Jets-loving co-host over here.
I'll live.
Wow.
So it's funny actually that the one with my head, I was going to pick the Titans over the Eagles. I think they match up excellent. That run defense for the Titans is, again, top 3 in the league. And they're going to make Jalen Hurts throw the ball over the top.
Hey, A.J. Brown revenge game, baby.
Listen, we'll see.
A.J. Brown revenge game.
I'm not saying I couldn't see the Eagles win. I'm just saying I think the Titans are going to win that game. But regardless, I have to pick another game. Let's see who we have here. Jurg, just earlier in the episode, who's the guy in Green Bay?
Aaron Rodgers.
Oh, yeah, I'm going to stick with him. Aaron Rodgers will be my 1 point pick. And
if they lose to the Bears, that'll be.
I don't know
if that might be a true
sign. Plays, but if he does, it'll be a closer game. They're going to have trouble stopping the run. But if he doesn't play and Nathan Peterman is the starter, because Trevor Siemian just went on IR, I think that it's not a very close game. And maybe Jordan Love plays the fourth quarter there.
Right. Sidebar, I can't believe Justin Fields could potentially come back from this.
He could come back, but I
you think they'll put him at risk? I don't think they should.
I wouldn't.
They really shouldn't.
Listen, if he can get him back at the end of the year and have him play a couple meaningless games and he's healthy, he's not going to make it worse. Sure, let him play. Let's see what you got. Let's see what else he could do. He was lighting the league on fire before he got hurt. In this game where you have generally been dominated by the Packers, I don't think it's worth risking his shoulder.
Yeah.
Was it his throwing shoulder? I don't remember.
I think it was his non-throwing shoulder.
Okay, but still. Not to me, not worth it.
That's fair.
If he needs surgery, I would have got the surgery already. You're 4-8. I'm sorry, you're 3-9.
Well, surgeries can take time to kind of prep. That's the thing.
That's fine. What's it going to take? 2 weeks to prep? 3 weeks to prep? I'm sure he'll be moved up to the list for being a millionaire professional athlete.
Fair enough. All right, Rick, the last pick that he's apparently debating very much so because he only gets that look when he's debating thoughts.
All right. So for Rick, it's between the Commanders and Giants and the Jags and Lions are the two teams he's debating, and he doesn't know which team he wants to take in either one.
Jesus Christ, Justin, can you see me right now? Well, no, again, remember that I've made these picks in the preseason before anything happened. So I happen to have both these games going against the teams that I picked to win their divisions. Also because I want to leave the Monday night game for the Deer just because it's hilarious in my mind. Because I could have picked Tampa Bay New Orleans instead, but I don't really want to. I think that's going to be a disastrous game.
Always close, yeah.
Yeah. So do I have a team that breaks their losing streak, or do I have a team that continues to rise up? Because though obviously, like I said, those are the two games that I have. So the question then becomes who's hosting? And I think Jacksonville's going to Detroit and Washington's going to the Giants.
Told you those are the games.
I'm sorry, our Lord and Savior Taylor Heineke, but I'm gonna pick the Giants at 1 point over Washington.
Wow,
blasphemous!
I know.
You've committed treason.
No, you know why? It's because do you know the last team to win back-to-back games at Ford Field in Detroit? It's actually the Bills.
Yeah,
and it's the first team since 2016 to do so.
That's awesome.
And you know the funniest part of that stat is? When I read that stat, they felt it necessary to clarify that the Lions were the one that did it. Yeah.
It's so bad. Oh, Lord.
It's rough.
Oh, my God.
Rough stuff.
Speaking of rough,
yeah,
we have a Deer that also has picks, ladies and gentlemen. If you're still new to the show, first off, welcome. What an episode that you've come join us on. And second, yes, we have a Deer who has not been in an episode in a while. Rick, I think we need to get on that and bring back the Deer.
Well, he was there last week. I had Deer Hand, remember?
That doesn't count. Anyways.
No, okay.
Anyways, we have what we love to call our Wheel of Chaos. It's one of the highlights every single time we bring it out. There is a point multiplier there for Sandoval for his games, depending on how many games he has in a week and stuff like that. It's mainly coming into effect because, like, after the first couple weeks of the season, he doesn't get 3 games anymore. So, boys, it is time to spin to win or lose, depending on your point of view. We have 1x, 2x, 3x, 3x plus 1, and 3x plus 2.
So the lowest he can earn is 3. The highest he can earn is 11. And I think we're going to get highest being 9, potentially. So, okay. That's not bad.
So the deer can potentially earn 9 points if he goes perfect this week, which makes sense.
That would put him at 54 points. So that's fine. Okay.
The deer versus Rick continues to be one of the premier storylines for us this season on the podcast. Speaking of which, it is almost time to close the show, which, I mean, you already know. You already know who the closer is on this show, ladies and gentlemen. But before we get to that, of course, we have to close out this part of the show properly. So, Rick, please recap to all the people all of our wonderful picks.
Jurg, your picks are as follows. At 4 point, you have Seattle over the Rams. 3 points, you have the upset of the Chargers over Vegas. 2 points, you have Philadelphia over Tennessee. And 1 point, Minnesota over the Jets. Justin, 4 points for Dallas over Indianapolis. 3 points for Kansas City over Cincinnati. 2 point upset for Houston over Cleveland. And 1 point for Green Bay over Chicago. Mine, 4 points, Baltimore over Denver. 3 points for Atlanta over Pittsburgh. 2 points for Miami over San Francisco in an upset. And the 1 point, Giants over Washington, also technically an upset. I have a very, very bad taste in my mouth for picking that game, but it is what it is. And then the deer at 2 points will take the upset of New Orleans over Tampa Bay. And the 1 point is Detroit beating Jacksonville.
Rick really does not want to lose to the deer.
Well, no, I mean, it keeps with the tradition of having a 2 point upset pick, so it kind of works out that way.
It's going to be amazing when Sandoval goes 2-0 and he goes like 1-3.
Justin, did Jerk tell you, by the way, how I'm doing pick-wise for myself and how I'm doing pick-wise for the deer?
No, I left that for you to tell.
I know.
Yeah, okay.
But but sometimes like we text and it's like 150 before you finally answer, so I'm not sure if like you saw that.
I skim it and see what it's about.
Okay. I was going to say, Justin,
because if it's about Queens College swimming, I generally don't read it.
They're the greatest team ever, dude. Come on, what are you doing?
Okay, that's fine. And I don't read the messages.
Okay, well.
But like if it's about like the podcast or football or professional sports, I read it. Or like personal things.
I suppose that's fine then.
Like that. Jerk, did you get that checked out, by the way?
Did I get what checked out?
I'm just making a joke. Go on.
What? Wait, what? What'd I miss?
Put up the podium. Let's have some rants. Come on now. All right. Look, I'm bitter about a lot of things right now. With Jacob deGrom signing with the Texas Rangers, I'm very bitter about that. I'm very bitter that Walker Zimmerman's man bun is a terrible center back for the United States, and he should be absolutely not put back on the men's soccer team ever again. Because all 3 goals that were allowed today by the United States and the Netherlands were all his fault. So basically a one-armed Helen Keller could play soccer better than Walker Zimmerman at this point. But I'm going to move ahead with my top 3 rants for the week. Number 3 is a gentleman from Florida by the name of Scott Klein. I'm not sure if you saw this was on CNN. It was a YouTube thing, but proposals, it's that, every year is that time of the year for proposal season, of course. And so Scott Klein, who's in from Sarasota, Florida, decided to take a lovely boat trip with his girlfriend, who he was going to ask to be his fiance, then wife. And 2 things here. Number 1, he decided to propose to her on the bow of the boat, which is the very front of the boat. Number 2, in doing so, the doofus dropped the ring box into the water and then proceeded to dive into the water to grab the ring box. Now, of course, he retrieved it, and of course, he still proposed, and she still said yes, although I don't really know why. You just saw your now soon to be husband, fumble a $20,000 engagement ring into Tampa Bay, which is not clean, by the way. So I don't really know why you're still going through with it, but mazel, congrats. And you know what? How about for your wedding, ceremony? Don't do it by the water. No one wants to relive any of that. A cliff is nice this time of year. Maybe a mountainside. That could be kind of fun. Whatever the case is.
No diving off of that.
You say that now.
Someone
you say that now.
Has to give him like hand grips so he could just like practice.
Number 2. I thought about making this about the term golden generation because there are a lot of golden generations in football, or soccer as the world calls it, that have never won a World Cup. Therefore, you can't call them golden when you won nothing. But I decided at this point to talk about the French national soccer team because the French national soccer team obviously advanced through the group stages and they're in the round of 16. But in their last game of the group stages, they lost 1-0 to Tunisia. Now, for those of you that don't know your history, Tunisia was once a French colony. This is a very, emotional, hard-fought game for the Tunisians. The French had a goal disallowed in the 108th minute by an offsides. They decided to lobby a claim to FIFA saying, overturn this, give us the goal. Number 1, France, you are going through anyway, so it doesn't matter win or loss or draw what happened. Number 2, stop picking on Tunisia. They're their own country now. You don't own them anymore. And number 3, you decided to lobby a claim to a governing body of international sports that 12 years ago awarded the World Cup through bribery to the then-ranked 113th nation in the world. You want to know who was ranked higher than Qatar at the time that FIFA awarded the World Cup to Qatar? I'll tell you. Wales was 2 points higher than them. Iceland was 3 points higher than them. The Central African Republic was 5 points higher than them. North Korea was 7 points higher than them. The Faroe Islands were in the top 75. Albania was in the top 50. And Israel was in the top 40. Like, don't go to a organization that clearly was swayed by money to give the World Cup to a country that didn't belong there and was the first ever host nation to be the first team eliminated from a World Cup. Like, nepotism at its finest, people. Like, don't do that. France, stop picking on Tunisia. I stand with Tunisia. In soccer, at least. Number 1. Here we go. Now, I'm going to stick with France because, you French, you've been really, well, it's not really France per se. It's more of the United Nations and a French thing. Now, I'm not sure if you've heard this. If you haven't, I'll tell you. There was a UNESCO, which is the body in the United Nations that protects cultural heritage and dignity. They've decided that there are elements that are being called priceless national treasures that we have to do everything we can in order to keep these things going alive. You know what made the list this week? The French baguette. It's not even my favorite bread. It's a terrible school lunch pizza bread, and it's just snooty and pretentious, much like the French themselves. Belgium, you're getting a pass this week. I'm going against you, France. But why are we deciding that we need lists to save things like this? Like, this list also includes Chinese tea, South Korean kimchi, and I think the, what's it called? Pork rinds or whatever it is. I don't even know. But, like, all of a sudden, because the world's supply of everything is dwindling, we have to do what we can to save the French baguette. So my question is, why are we offering the French baguette more protection and status than the living, breathing manatees of Florida or the Tasmanian devil? Why? Because it's all about culture. The French culture sucks. I'm sorry to say, but not really. Like, again, Belgium, you get a pass this week, even though your team in soccer was horrible too, and the golden generation point was about you guys because you're terrible. But that being said and known, why are we protecting the French baguette? It's horrible. The worst bread I can think of. And no, please, I will take a pizza bread, a pizza burger instead. I will take Italian cheese bread. I will make beer cheese bread before I ever touch a French baguette ever again. Duncan, sell them because you suck too, and you know I won't go there, so go ahead and sell your French baguettes. And Adam Rank, just fight me. I'm waiting right here for you in this dimly lit kitchen for you to come here and fight me. So you too, Eden Hazard, come fight me as well.
What? Oh my God! So add another country to the list of countries. Rick is going to make his own world war, but they're all just going to fight him.
And they're all going to lose.
Clearly, somehow, some way. I don't even think Justin wants to make a comment about this, so I'll let you be, Justin. That was another amazing rant, to say the least. I kind of wanted more Jacob deGrom, so I'm a little disappointed. But I mean, you made a new European enemy, I guess. So there's that. And Albania got a shout out, so I guess I'll take that as well. Although I kind of feel some type of way that we aren't rich enough to corrupt FIFA, which kind of has me depressed. Anyways,
yeah, it is what it is.
Irregardless, ladies and gentlemen, that was another fantastic episode of the Sports Agents of Chaos podcast, where, as you can see by the tagline of the show, we had the fun, we had the football. At the end, clearly, we had plenty of chaos going on as well. Thank you all so much for joining us this week. We'll be back next week. Home stretch of the NFL season. Playoffs are coming soon. Like, it's going to be fun times when it comes to what we'll be discussing here, especially come to playoff discussions. And then we did a little preview. I don't know how many more of these we'll do before the end of the season, but the offseason is not as far away as you guys might think. It'll be a lot of interesting conversation. This show started last offseason, talking about free agents, talking about the draft. It's almost there. Our full circle moment is coming soon, boys. So all of you, thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back next week.